Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today we have InsightWorks with us, and Mark Hamblin will be presenting on mobile warehouse and shop floor data collection. And we just ask that if you do have any questions, please go ahead and type them into the questions box, and we will get them called out and answered at our Q&A time at the end of the webinar. And we do record all of our webinars, so this will be available for you to review again or share with anyone on our website by the end of the week, and that is innovia.com. And so now I will turn it over to Mark, and he'll kick off our presentation.
Hi, good morning, or yeah, I guess it's morning for everybody everywhere. Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to go through and talk a little bit about barcoding in a manufacturing or distribution facility, and what are some of the options and things you can look for when you move to barcoding, or if you're looking to move to barcoding. And mostly we'll do that through looking at what the software looks like and going through what it would look like for the shop employees to use the system, and that will kind of indicate what is possible on the back end. So we're going to start with the sort of the material management side of it, the warehouse side of it, and then we'll move into what it looks like if we're doing production related activities as well. So to start there, what you see on the screen here is a handheld that I'm holding in my hand. So this is the type of device you would typically use when you get into barcoding in the warehouse. Now, that's one of the first considerations when you're getting into this, how to barcode and what devices you're going to use to read those barcodes is often one of the first questions. And this is the style of device we typically go with. So this Datalogic Falcon device here is a good one. It's representative of that sort of class of device, but we'll work with any maker model. There are devices out there like this one that have a camera. You can take a picture of something at receiving. If it's damaged, it'll upload to Nav and attach to the PO, or it's shipping, you can take a picture, that type of thing. There are tablets available as well, or forklift mount computers that you can use. Those are good if you have sort of a fixed position where you can mount them, like on a picking cart or a forklift or something like that. But a tablet for handheld picking, or even a phone for handheld picking, those things don't work very well. You generally want one of these rugged style devices out there, and they come in various price points. But at any rate, that's what I have in my hand, and as we go through the first part of this demo, you'll see me move the screen around and scan barcodes and things like that, and it will update on your end. Now, so the device selection is definitely one part of it, how you're going to, what your employees are going to be using to scan barcodes. The other one is to ensure that you have Wi-Fi coverage within the warehouse. These are all real time. So with this solution, we're scanning directly to Nav. Everything we do is validated against the Nav business logic, which means that we need real-time connection. And that's helpful because then the people in the shop are getting real-time feedback. They're not scanning something and then 10 minutes later they're getting an error message that they did something wrong. They're getting that feedback as they're doing it. We do have an offline mode though, Scratchpad. If there is a network failure or something like that, you can scan everything locally and upload it into Nav after the fact and process it from within there. Now, that's the device. I mentioned the barcodes as well. So when you get into this, you have a few choices. You can generate your own barcodes, your vendors may provide barcodes, or you can actually use these mobile devices without any barcodes whatsoever. Barcodes, of course, are the preferred approach because they simplify everything, they reduce data entry errors, all of those sorts of things. And when we get into it, I'll show you how we can actually generate barcodes or print barcode labels from the handheld device, and those are just reports that are built in Nav. So if you have a newer version of Nav, you can actually go into Word and format your own label reports and do all that sort of thing. All right, so that's a little bit on the infrastructure. You need Wi-Fi, you need some sort of device, and generally you need barcode labels that you can scan if you want to do barcoding. So let's get in and actually have a look at how the software would work, in an environment. So the first thing is the number of apps that we have installed on this. So within Nav, there's really about 50 different ways you can set up a warehouse location. And the results of that configuration will show up on the handheld device. So for example, if you don't have putaways enabled, you won't be able to use putaways on the handheld device. And that's very important, because what the system allows you to do is, figure out what your best practice physical processes are, and then configure Nav to match those processes, and then the handheld will allow you to execute those while physically verifying everything that you do. So in other words, the way I've got it set up here, I've got a two-stage, receive and put away process. I receive everything into a staging area, and then I do a secondary put away to move it into the warehouse. Well, if that's not your physical process, maybe you receive everything directly into a parts room or something like that. You wouldn't want to turn that on. You would leave that off. And therefore, the electronic process that you're using on the handhelds and within Nav matches your physical process. So the short way of putting that is that, this system Warehouse Insight will work with any Nav configuration and don't even need to turn on bins. Now, there's a whole long discussion about how to set up Nav locations with bins, with picks, with all sorts of things that we can go through, with you if you have further questions. But the basic concept is that we'll work with any configuration. Your existing Nav configuration will work fine with a solution like this. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the applications that we have on the scanner. And we can add additional applications on here. So if you have a custom module or something that your partner has built or you've built, you can actually extend that application to the handheld device very easily with our application builder. So all of these applications are built from within Nav, and you can go in and you can modify them, or you can add additional applications very easily. But the applications that I have on this particular device, oh, and one last thing on the device, I'm actually running the Windows variant here of this Falcon. Windows or Android are both supported. So if you have legacy devices with Windows, or if you want to buy new Windows devices, that's fine. If you want to buy Android devices, that's fine as well. And we can have a discussion on which approach is better as you get into the project. Now, the applications, we've got an inquiry mode, allows me to scan a barcode and it tells me what it is. That could be a lot number, a serial number, an item barcode, a bin code, whatever you want. You scan that and it gives you details, almost like a mini item card in a way. We also use that as a drill down tool from all of the other applications within the system. So if I need more detail about, a receipt or a pick or something like that, I can drill down and I can get detail on that. I'll show you how that works in a moment. We've got an inventory count application on here. We actually have two. We have a standard count, which uses the standard Nav physical inventory journals. And that works fine, especially if you don't have lot numbers or serial numbers, because you're kind of limited to the set of capabilities that base Nav has, which are fairly, minimal. Or we have the advanced count module, which really everybody needs. If you've got a lot of inventory, or if you're tracking lot numbers and serial numbers, you need that advanced count because it gives you reconciliation tools. It gives you the ability to do recounts. It reconciles by serial number and lot number and a number of other more advanced things that standard Nav just doesn't do. Right? I mentioned Scratchpad already, the offline mode. We have license plating as well, so that allows you to palletize product, build packages, that sort of thing. Really create a container, anything that can hold inventory, and then you've got a single barcode you can use to move that product around, to ship it, to receive it, to do whatever you need with that group of products, even stage it for production. Then I can scan a single barcode to consume all that material that I've staged for production, as an example. Okay, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Production, we can do consumption and output from the handheld devices, and we'll get into the shop floor data collection a little later, where we can also track labor and things like that. But from the handhelds, standard consumption, output, and picking for production and assembly orders as well. So we can do assemble to stock and assemble to order management from the handhelds. Receiving and put away, I mentioned already, I've got it set up sort of with the full-blown warehousing turned on, but you don't need that turned on. So in my case, I'm going to use warehouse receipts, and then I'm going to use warehouse putaways. But we can receive directly against a transfer order or a purchase order if we want. Picks and ships, same thing. I've got a two-stage picking process turned on, which again is optional. And in this case, I will scan everything, I'll pick everything, I'll move it into a staging area with the handheld devices, and then somebody in shipping will pick that up and either rescan the product for verification or just ship it out on the shipping side. And then finally on here, we've got the movement, which allows me to move product around in the warehouse or from one location to another. Let's say I want to move damaged products into a return to vendor location or something like that within Nav. I can do that from the handheld devices directly. Or if you wanted to use the warehouse or inventory movement functionality within Nav, that movement module supports that as well. All right, let's jump in and have a quick look at how this, some of these features work and go from there. So I'm going to start with receiving because it covers off a number of different concepts. First of all, how we get to these documents. So pretty much anywhere in the system, I can scan, a barcode that represents that document. So I could scan a barcode for the PO. That's not normally, like receiving, you don't normally have a PO with a barcode on it. But I can also scan an item and it'll find the first PO with that item number on it. Or what's more typical is I'm standing at the back door, I've got a packing slip, and it's got my PO number on it. So I type in a few digits of that PO number and hit the lookup button to get a list of the POs. So if I hit that lookup button, what it will do is it'll give me a list of all the purchase orders in the system, and I'm going to grab 106025 here. And when I do that, what it will do is it'll load that entire PO on the system for me. Now, if you're familiar with the Nav configuration, I'm actually doing a warehouse receipt. So it created a warehouse receipt for me automatically at that point in time, or it found an existing warehouse receipt for that particular purchase order. So now I've got everything listed on the screen that I need to receive. All of these columns and everything are configurable. You can decide what data you want to show and all that sort of thing on the screen. That's all done from within Nav. And the menu as well, which I'll get into in a sec, is also all configurable. You can add or delete or change whatever you like to the menu, and the menu can be on a per user basis as well if you want, or per handheld basis. At any rate, I've got my purchase order up here, or actually my warehouse receipt up here. I've got everything I need to receive, so it's quite easy from here. There's really three scenarios. One is your vendor supplies barcodes, so everything I bring in has a barcode on it already. The second scenario is it doesn't have a barcode, but I want to print one and apply a barcode label to the product for ease of use later down the road. Or the third scenario is it doesn't have a barcode on it, and I'm never going to add a barcode to it because, it's, sheet metal or something like that I'm not going to stick a barcode on, or something else where maybe I have the item number as a barcode near the bin. So we support all three of those. So the first one, though, is the easiest. If you can get your vendors to barcode things for you, that's the way to go. So what I'll do is I'll pull something off the pallet or out of the box, and I'll simply grab it and scan the barcode. When I do that, the system finds it on the list and optionally shows me the picture of that item and allows me to specify the quantity that I found. So let's say I found 12 of those guys. So we enter that, and now it shows that I've got 12 ready to receive and 48 outstanding. So again, this has gone into Nav in real time and set that quantity to receive in Nav, and I can continue scanning. So now maybe I'll scan, a different barcode and enter the quantities and everything else. And later on, I find more of these LS10 PCs. So I'll scan, that barcode again, and optionally shows me the picture. A little bit of lag here on the screen share. We'll give it a sec for your screen to catch up to what my handheld is doing here. At any rate, once it comes up, I'm able to go in and record the additional quantity, and what it will do is it'll simply increment my quantity to receive here and decrement my outstanding quantity here. So what that means is I don't have to unpack everything, put it in a pile, and count it all at once. Okay, I can just keep receiving like that. So the screen finally caught up, and you can see the impact there. Okay, so that's basically it for scanning barcodes with receiving. Now, as far as what's in the barcode, we can incorporate lot numbers, serial numbers, quantities, units of measure, all sorts of things. I can actually receive full pallets at this point if I wanted. If you get an ASN where you've got all the pallet level detail, I could actually scan a single pallet barcode to receive all the product on those pallets. Now, once I'm done receiving, I can simply go in, I can hit post, and that posts it within Nav. You'll notice on this menu here as well, we've got a print option. So if product came in without a barcode, I could simply go there, hit print, and it could print out barcode labels for me, or really whatever you want. There's support selections for this print button, and we could print anything you like from there. Or because these menus are configurable, you could add several print options. So one might print labels, another might print the safety data sheet, another might print a copy of the PO, whatever you like. Okay. The license plating up here, that is throughout the system. So at the point of receipt, I could actually build up a pallet for put away. So I could unpack all these boxes, throw everything on a pallet, and then I've got a single barcode I can use to then go and put that into the warehouse. All right. So that's the basics of receiving. Fairly straightforward. If I didn't have a barcode and I've got the system set up to allow me to do it per item or per item category code, I could come in here and manually enter the quantity without actually ever scanning that particular item. So that's useful for things that you're not necessarily going to barcode. But that's it for receiving. It's very easy. I simply scan the item that I'm receiving, I enter the quantity that I'm receiving, and I'm done. All right. Now, once that's done, once I post it, if you have cross-docking turned on, it can alert you that there's back orders, and it'll tell you, you know, don't put the stock away, put it into the, you know, the shipping area, the cross-dock area for shipping out immediately rather than, you know, putting it away and then going and picking it, all of those sorts of things. If put-aways are turned on, it can generate a put-away at that point in time, or you can use the put-away worksheet to generate the put-aways. But let's assume I've received everything, it's in the warehouse. Now I need to pick something. So the way picking works is typically you have a piece of paper with a pick ticket on it. You know, it's a good physical trigger. I've got a piece of paper sitting on the printer. That means I have work to do. I pick it up, I scan the barcode on it, and I start work. And then I leave that piece of paper at shipping so they know what the heck to do with all the product that I've picked. However, you can go a little more paperless if you like. So for example, you know, if you've got a one-stage pick and ship process where the shipper is actually doing the picking, maybe he doesn't need that piece of paper. Maybe he can hit, you know, the little lookup button and find all the outstanding picks in the system. So these could be sales orders. I've got picks turned on, but this could be a list of all the sales orders that are released and ready to ship. And he can grab one. And for example, if I grab pick number 19, that'll assign it to me. And, you know, nobody else would get into that particular document. I'm going to grab pick number 11 here. And very much like receiving, it brings up that entire document on the screen for me, and I can start picking. Now, there's two modes of viewing the pick screen. One is this one, which is what we call sort of the list view. The other is a card view, which shows me one record at a time. So if you've seen, you know, older warehouse management systems, that's often how they'll show it. They'll show, you know, the first item to pick, and once that's done, it'll move it to the next item. And you only see one sort of record at a time. So we have that view as well. And, you know, in some environments, that's actually the more appropriate one to use. But I like this one, especially if you have a good warehouse workforce, because this gives them a lot more context and a lot more flexibility in how they execute the pick. So I can scroll through there with my thumb and I can see everything that I'm supposed to pick. You know, do I need a cart? Do I need a forklift? What do I need to do to execute this? And in addition, you know, when I brought up this pick, maybe I'm standing on the other side of the warehouse. You know, Nav is telling me to start picking from bin 1. I'm standing, you know, halfway across the warehouse, and I actually want to start picking from here and work my way backwards. Well, that's no problem. So what I do is I simply walk up to the bin I want to pick from. I scan the bin code, and the system will find it and highlight it on the screen for me. Took a sec there on the screen share. And so I don't have to tell the system what I'm trying to do. I don't have to say, hey, I want to scan a bin or I want to start picking somewhere else. I simply scan a barcode. It knows what I'm trying to do and it reacts accordingly. Similarly here, I'm at this particular bin and I want to pick out of it. So I'm going to pick some of these LS10 PCs, the second item there. So I scan the barcode and again, optionally shows me the picture and allows me to enter the quantity that I've picked. So I'm going to pick 10 out of there. And now I've got an issue because I've picked 10, but there's 4 left. And I don't know where they are. I can't find them in that bin. So now we get into a little bit more of the advanced functionality. Normally I'd have to write this on the back of my hand and then, you know, an hour later figure out in the office what the heck happened. But here, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to leave the warehouse supervisor a note that something went wrong. Right, so I hit the add note button, and I'm going to use an abbreviation here, standard text code in Nav that I set up, just BE for bin empty, and I'll say it's, you know, bin 0412, and I'm just typing on the physical keyboard, but there's of course the on-screen keyboard as well. And when I do that, what happens is it sends a notification to Nav, either for myself or the warehouse supervisor, that tells them what's going on, and they can click on that and open up the pick ticket and see what's happening and those sorts of things. Right. So step 1, I've let somebody know that there's an issue. Now, at this point, I could have also done a cycle count for it. I could have actually adjusted the inventory. There's a number of activities you can take in a situation like this. You know, a notification for somebody else to follow up while I complete my picking is often one of the nicer ones. And speaking of that, I still need to fulfill this pick, right? I've taken 10, I've got 4 left. You know, I don't want to short ship this or anything else. So how do I figure out where else I can find this particular product? Well, you know, I could go and ask Joe, you know, wherever the last person was to put this stuff away and figure it out. Or what I can do on my keypad is hit F8, so you can set up hotkeys for all of these actions. Or I can just tap the screen here so you can see it. And we've got this item inquiry option here. And when I tap on that, what it does is it drills down into the inquiry mode and gives me more detail about that particular item. So here it shows me all the other locations within the warehouse where I can find that particular item. So this is assuming, of course, you have bins enabled. If you don't have bins enabled, it'll still tell you that, you know, you have a bunch of these in stock, but, you know, you'll have to go and figure it out yourself. With bins enabled, it gives me that breakdown. If you have lot numbers with expiration dates, it will also break it out by lot number and expiration date. So I could go and find the oldest product to pick as well. So in this case, you know, I was supposed to pick it out of 0412, but it wasn't there. You know, Overstock has 100. I might go there to pick it out. I can also look at recent transactions, which, you know, most warehouse people don't look at, but it's kind of handy. I can see maybe there's an outstanding pick and it's that Joe guy again, and he always picks cases instead of eaches, so I'm going to hunt him down and get my stuff back. Or maybe I get to the bin and it's completely empty and the description really isn't enough for me to figure out what I'm looking for. I could look at the picture again and maybe, hey, they're just on the shelf beside where they're supposed to be. I'm going to move them over and continue my work. So that ability to drill down gives you a lot more insight into the warehouse. So it gives you the ability to make decisions on the shop floor without having to run back into the office and sort things out, right? So it's a very quick and easy way to figure out what's happening and make adjustments, you know, from the handheld device. So once I figured out which bin I'm picking from, I can change the bin or split the line or do whatever I need to complete that. Now back to the menu. While I'm picking, I can also be doing my packing. So if I'm building up a pallet while I'm picking, or even just individual boxes, maybe I'm doing 100 e-commerce orders and I want to package them up in envelopes as I'm going, I can actually create those packages from the handheld while I'm picking and package them up. So when it gets to shipping, the packages are already created, ready to go, and I can essentially hit a button on the handheld or from within Nav, and it'll generate my shipping labels and everything for me, and they're out the door. So it can really streamline some of the shipping processes as well when we're using that license plating from the picks. All right, now that's essentially it. You know, that's all I was going to show on the handheld. The inventory count module, that deserves its own separate you know, session. But again, much more comprehensive than the standard Nav one. That's normally something I would show. I'm going to skip that because now I want to talk a little bit about an alternative to using the handhelds and barcoding. So some people get into this and they look at this and it's way too much. You know, you're not ready for barcoding, or you don't have bins enabled, or, you know, you're worried about, you know, the cost of these things or any of those sorts of things. So there is another way you can ease into barcoding. And what barcoding really does for you is it really improves your inventory accuracy, because you have to physically verify everything you're doing. I have to scan the bin, I have to scan the item to verify that's actually what I've got in my hand. Now I lied a little bit there. There are settings you can turn on that allow you to, you know, not have to scan bins or items in certain situations. But in general, that's what you want. If I grab something off the shelf, I scan it to verify that's actually what I'm supposed to be doing. Now, if you don't want to do that with a mobile device, but you still want, you know, to make sure that you're shipping the right product or the right product is being picked, another approach is to use dynamic ship. And what dynamic ship is, it runs on the handheld device. So this shipping module here will tie into dynamic ship. It's just part of the system. And what dynamic ship does is it allows you to generate shipping labels from, you know, common carriers like UPS, FedEx, guys like that, and LTL. So we'll do the bill of ladings and all those sorts of things. It'll manage your tracking numbers and your freight costs and all of those sorts of things for you. But one nice thing about it is it's got this interface from within NAV, and this can run on the tablet or in a web client if you like, that can sit out there where you normally have your UPS, you know, World Ship Station or whatever else. You can use this to actually scan barcodes to verify you've picked the appropriate product, and also to generate your shipping labels and everything else. So I'll show you a little bit about how this works. So let's say somebody went out there, they picked an order, and they came and they dropped it off for me. So I've already scanned this this order. So I've brought up order, sales order 1018, and these are the items that I need to ship. So the picker has grabbed it. He hasn't scanned anything necessarily in the warehouse. If he has, that's fine. But he's dropped this stuff off for me to ship. And now I want to go in and package this up and ship it out. So what I'll do, and there are a number of different options here for packaging things up. I'm going to show you sort of the most detailed way of doing that, so you can get sort of the worst case scenario for what it would take to use the product. There's the ability to scan single commands to pack everything up and generate labels and all that, but I'm going to go the long way. So the first thing I'm going to do as a shipper, I've got a bunch of stuff sitting on my shipping counter here that I need to ship. So I look at it and say, okay, I'm going to use this size of box. I grab a box off the shelf, and then I scan a barcode command by the terminal. So it's not on the box, it's just by the terminal to indicate the type of box I'm using. So I scanned a barcode, and it created a box ID for me, 295, with the preset dimensions, and it even brought in a preset weight. But we can get that weight from a scale, or you can manually type it in as well. But I've got a box here that I need to package up, and the first thing I'm going to package in it is that those bicycles. We'll pretend they're tiny bikes, toy bikes or something. So I scan the barcode for the bike, and that's again where now I've got that verification that they've picked the right product. If I scanned the barcode on that product and it was a tricycle instead of a bicycle or something, it's going to yell at me. And now I pack 4 of those. So I know I've got 4 of these packed into this first box, and now that box is full. So I'll start the next box. So now I've got box 296 here, and then I'm going to scan the remaining product into that box. Now I'm going to cheat a little. I've got a command here that I can pack everything without having to scan each individual item. If you want that verification, you would simply turn that command off so people can't use it. But I scanned a command called pack all, and I just packed the remaining product in that second package. So now what I've got is I've got my 2 packages defined. I know what's in each package and everything else. Great. Let's generate a label and send it out. Now, if this was LTL, these could be pallets. I could have used a handheld device to build up the pallets, everything else. And with LTL, I would, print a bill of lading, all that kind of stuff. If you've got your LTL rate sheets loaded up into Nav, I could do rate shopping across LTL carriers, that sort of thing. But this is, these are small packages, 10 pounds a piece. So when I say print the labels, what it's going to do is it's going to go out and get the labels from whatever carrier I've specified on that sales order. So UPS or FedEx or whatever else. Now, in this particular case, I didn't specify a carrier. So when I tell it to print the labels, the poor guy in the warehouse is going to be told, hey, I don't know how to ship this. And it's going to give me the ability to choose which carrier I want to use. So that's what I'll do. I'll scan the command, and what it will do is it'll bring up a list of all the carriers that I have access to in the system. All right. Now, again, this is kind of unusual because the carrier will probably default in based on the customer, or the CSR will have already specified how they want it shipped and all that. But in this particular case, because I didn't specify it, I get to choose how I'm shipping this particular shipment. And it gives me all the rates. Now, these are your contracted rates. So this uses your FedEx or UPS account to get the rates. So if you have discounts and all that kind of stuff, those will show up here. So this is real-time online rate shopping. And you'll notice US Postal Service can't ship because I'm actually shipping out of Canada here. So we can originate shipments in the US, Canada, UK, Asia, wherever you want. It doesn't really matter. We can do all sorts of international shipping. But I'm going to choose my FedEx 2-day here. So, the warehouse guy chooses FedEx 2-day. And that screen, by the way, is also available to the sales reps. So you can do rate shopping at the quote or the sales order level as well. Now, when I chose that FedEx 2-day, normally that would just spit out the FedEx labels on the printer beside me, and I'm good to go. I've got it set up to do a print preview here so we can actually see those labels. And you can see I've got, box 1 of 2 and box 2 of 2. So there's all my shipping labels, and we're good to go. Now, when it did that, it also did a number of other things, like it added the freight cost to the sales order. There's a bunch of rules you can set up to mark up the freight, discount it based on order value, all sorts of stuff like that. The other nice thing it did was if we go in, and I'm going to log into Gmail as the customer, So now the customer that ordered those bikes and those chairs gets an email from us that says, hey, here's your tracking information for the order we just shipped. And when they click on that, what they get is they get a tracking page that has your logo on it, your advertising, all of those sorts of things. So this is really nice because, you know, this is how you get the marketing guys to pay for your warehouse software, because they love this stuff. I mean, this is, you know, all your logos and your advertising and everything else. The only thing that changes is the carrier that I've used. So if this was UPS, it'd have the UPS logo and everything else, but it gives me all the same tracking details I'd get if I went to the FedEx site. So if I just refresh this page, it'll update, you know, pretty quickly. So we can see all the status of that package, right? So this is a really nice additional value for that shipping. It's the customer gets an email that you get to format whatever way you like. They get a nice branded tracking page. It looks very professional, very clean, and it's very easy. And the other big deal with that, as I mentioned, is that you can do this, so you can do the barcode verification without getting into the full WMS side of it, without having to use handheld scanners or everything else. If you force people to scan everything before they ship it, you're making sure you're not shipping the wrong product and the right product was picked and everything else. Plus you get all those other benefits where you've got the label generation and the online tracking and adding the freight cost to the order automatically and all of those good things as well. Okay, so that's really, and last thing, everything I did from the screen within Nav, essentially I can do from the handheld device as well. With the exception of the rate shopping, we don't put the rate shopping on the handheld devices, but I could go into shipping and I could hit a button and I could spit out my FedEx or UPS labels directly from the handheld. All right, so that's really the warehouse side. We went through receiving, we picked some product, we shipped it out. It's very material oriented. Everything is about inventory and how to move inventory. Now, the other part of this is, you know, what if I have a production facility where, you know, I've received product, I've put it away, and then I want to pick it for you know, the manufacturing process. I want to indicate what I've used. I want to record my labor, all of those sorts of things. Well, we have that capability as well. So generally, when we're picking for production, often we'll use the standard Nav picks because they're set up to work with that. But we can also use the production module to go in and pick specifically against a production BOM without creating a pick. And there's some advantages to that as well. You know, for one, if you're not using picks, that's very handy to have. And even if you are using picks in advanced warehousing, this offers a number of other capabilities that standard advanced warehousing doesn't do. But once I've got that picked, normally what will happen is it'll be available for the production employees. And the production employees, they will see a screen like this. So this typically runs on a fixed terminal. So this could be a tablet by the work center, or typically it's a larger screen, so it could be a touch screen or it could be a standard, you know, consumer grade monitor or whatever you want. But it just runs in a web browser. And this is the interface that the shop floor employees, you know, the manufacturing employees will use to, number one, record their time, including time and attendance, so we can capture when they clock in for the day, when they clock out, calculate breaks, calculate overtime, all of those sorts of things, and send that to payroll directly. But the primary purpose as far as this session goes is to talk about how we actually track manufacturing time and manufacturing activities. So what I would do as an employee is I would have a badge, it has a barcode on it, with my ID, and I'd scan that to unlock this terminal. Now you can also set it up to allow people to type in their user ID, but really it's a barcoded solution. We want to keep people using the barcodes because it eliminates a lot of data entry issues. It almost completely eliminates them. At any rate, I walk up to this terminal, I scan my badge to unlock the terminal, and what it does is it shows me my time card for the day. Now it's empty because I haven't done anything yet today. This is the first time I've clocked in today and I've got nothing to do. At this point, what I would typically do, if you have paper-based shop floor travelers that travel with the product that you're producing, I would simply scan a barcode on that traveler to start my activity. So I scan that and away I go. Now I wander off, so I can scan my badge again to lock the terminal, or just wander off and it'll lock the terminal after a preset period of time. I'll scan my badge again and away I go. So I go off, I do my work, I come back a little while later, I unlock the terminal again, and then I scan the next thing I'm working on. And maybe now I'm doing a little bit of asset maintenance, or perhaps I'm doing, you know, some sweeping or something like that. And you'll notice when I scan those additional activities, what it does is it clocks me off the prior activity and starts the next one. We do have the ability to have one operator running multiple machines, so it can be clocked into multiple production orders simultaneously. We also have a batching mode, so if you're doing, you know, you're in a paint booth and you're painting, you know, 20 production orders simultaneously, it can scan all those in as a batch and then clock off at the end, and it'll split the time proportionally. But really what this allows me to do is, you know, at whatever level of detail you want, track what the employees are doing on the shop floor. So in this case, you know, on this particular production order, I know if I go into Nav, this again is directly integrated with Nav. Everything we do is real time. There's no extra database or anything else. So if I went into this production order, I can see that Mark H, you know, clocked into this activity at 9:34, and he's put this amount of time on it, and so on and so forth. So it does give us that ability to track what's going on the shop floor, even from the customer service rep perspective. If somebody phones up about the order, they can drill down from the sales order into the production order and see exactly where it is in the process. Okay, so that is a big aspect. It's not just tracking my actual time against expected, which is a big part of it, but it also bubbles up even into customer service area. Now, these non-productive codes, like a scan sweeping here, that could be anything, could be toolbox meetings or first aid or whatever you like. And there is actually a safety logbook with the system to track incidents and fire drills and certifications and all that as well. But one of the key parts, of course, is the production site. So I'm just going to scan into another operation here and, you know, show you some of the other things that we can do. So we do have the work instructions. This can be routing specific, so standard instructions every time, or it can be order specific. So if you've got order specific instructions, you know, if you're an engineer to order or something like that, you can list those here per order. The bill of materials. So I mentioned we could do a pick to bring this over to production, and we can actually consume it from the pick or from the handhelds. But if I'm doing point of use consumption, where maybe I want to do consumption, have the people, you know, working at this particular work center record what they've used, I can actually go ahead and do that. And this is especially useful if they're pulling a specific serial number or lot number off the shelf to use, and that hasn't been recorded through a pick. I can come in here and record that. Or maybe you have back flushing turned on and you want to use this to record any additional usage, in other words, scrap, for particular items. So I could come in here, I don't have it visible, but we can make that column visible where I can show the scrap code and allow me to record additional quantities with an associated scrap code. Right. I can also record output, so I can do intermediate piece count at specific operations. So I could record how many of these have completed this operation. And I can also do finished goods output. So at the last operation, I can record I've completed 20. I might even have it spit out the item labels at that point, or a pallet label, or whatever you want. So it handles all that material capability as well as the labor. Now, a couple other things that we can do here. We've got, you know, you can show the item picture if you really want, but we do have the ability to show linked documents. We have a tool called Nav Extender that allows you to drag and drop into Nav, and that Nav Extender tool is free. You can download it. Go to navextender.com. That's navextender.com. You can download it, run it. There's no Nav modifications required, and you can drag and drop documents into any page within Nav. So there's a little plug for the document management piece that we have. Completely free. Don't need a license or anything like that. At any rate, once those documents are linked, I can come in and look at it. These can be linked to the item or to the specific production order or whatever you like. And then I can launch that on the shop floor so that I'm not putting as much paper out on the shop floor as well. We have quality inspections that allows us to come in and build up an inspection checklist for recording inspections at various work centers or for specific products or whatever you like. In this interface, it's specific to production orders, but from within Nav, I can use that with purchase receipts or shipments or even people. I could put a quality inspection on a person if I really wanted. But what this allows me to do is come in and record all the results of my quality inspection test and put tolerances and all that. So I've just created one called generic here with a bunch of different data types to illustrate some of the things we can capture. But you define these templates and they're, again, work center or operation specific or item specific or any combination of that that you want to use. So in here I can come in and I could say, oh, if this is 5, you know, it's a pass, and if it's a 6, it's a fail. So the results of these tests are actually stored in Nav, and I can go in there and look it up by item or by production order or whatever I like, and I can review all of these test results. And it can be by lot number and serial number as well, so we can test specific lots or specific serial numbers or just the production order as a whole. Okay. Now, that's a little bit about, you know, what I would do if I'm barcoding, but we have a couple of other options as well. So if you wanted to use a touch screen and you didn't have a paper traveler, you know, perhaps, what I can do is I can use a dispatch list. We have a tabular and a graphical dispatch list that I can use. So what I'll do is I'm going to scan somebody else's badge here. So somebody else is going to come up behind me and scan their badge. And what it'll do is it'll just flip over. Now Linda is clocked in, and you'll notice Linda doesn't see her time card to start. She sees a dispatch list. And this is all the work that's coming up at her particular department or whatever you set the filter for. So in this case, I haven't set a filter and she gets to see everything, but let's say she was working at a drilling work center. She'd only see the work that's coming up at that particular work center. And then she could simply tap on this or click on it with the mouse and then click clock on without having to scan the barcode. Now, we really do prefer barcodes, but again, I could come in here, tap on this, especially touchscreen or tablet or something like that. Once I've tapped on that, I could simply hit clock on and I'm good to go. You can also have the supervisor assign work to individual people. And there's a setting that would only show her work that's assigned to her and none of this other stuff that you see that's unassigned. So a supervisor in Nav can come in and assign work to individual people as well. And that doesn't require machine centers, by the way, if you're familiar with Nav manufacturing. These are actual employees within the system, and this assignment is independent of any work center or machine center that operation is assigned to. So with the graphical dispatch or the tabular dispatch list, we can click on this, they can come in, choose what they want to work on, and away they go. You know, you could hide all of the stuff on the right if you really want it. And then the last thing I'll mention is the graphical dispatch list. So I'll just flip over to this because it's got prettier data. But the graphical dispatch list is essentially a scheduling whiteboard or a production scheduler. So if I'm Linda, I can come in this case I'm Tim, but if I'm Linda, I can come in and let's say I'm working at Work Center 100. Here's all the work that's scheduled on that particular work center for whatever date range I specified. So I've actually got 8 months worth of time on this particular one. Normally you'd have a week or two or something like that. And it shows me all of the things that I need to work on. And I can just, again, tap on any of these things and then tap clock on and I'm in. Or I can do consumption or output or whatever I want from here as well. So again, it gives me a nice graphical view of what's coming up at my work center and all the related activities. So you'll notice if I tap on one of these, it highlights all of the other operations on this production order in green, so I can see what's happening next. Now, the other nice thing about this is, let's say I'm a lead hand or a supervisor. I come in here, it's Friday. I look at this, I say, we're never going to be able to start this today. We don't have material, whatever else. You know, we're going to start this next week instead. So I can just take this and I can drag it and I'll drop it here to Monday at 10 a.m. And when I do that, it would normally reschedule everything associated with it. So in this case, we've got an issue with the server. It's not rescheduling, but it would come in and it would reschedule that event and move all the additional operations out for me and allow me to drag and drop anywhere in the system. Okay, so that drag and drop scheduling capability allows me to react to any changing conditions on the shop floor at any time and move things around. We can also go out quite a bit further and we can look out, you know, a year in advance or whatever we want and move things around. But really it's meant for that lead hand that's coming in and he wants to quickly adjust the schedule or reassign, move from one work center to another or whatever else he needs to do. Okay. All right, and I think that's really all I'm going to cover for now. There's a lot more to the system, such as reporting and approvals and a number of other things. But from a shop floor perspective, being able to capture labor, material, quality, machine time. I didn't mention, but we can capture machine time independently of labor time. All of those sorts of things that you need from an MES system on the shop floor, this provides, and it is tied in with the material handling capability if you want, and it's a nice seamless system all the way through. All right, so we've hit exactly 45 minutes, which was kind of what we were targeting, and I'm going to leave it at that and open it up for questions at this point.
All right, Mark, we do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Can I use a smartphone with Warehouse Insight?
You can. I wouldn't recommend it for warehouse use. So if you've got an outside sales guy, that needs to scan, do a quick inventory count at a, customer location or something like that, great. Smartphones are ideal. Not really for the warehouse. They're not very ergonomic. And if you are looking at that style device, like a smartphone style device, all the manufacturers have ruggedized versions that you can do a hot swap the battery, right? So you can run it for more than a few hours at a time without the battery dying. All right.
Okay, thank you for that. Next question, what's the ROI on this?
So it somewhat depends on where you're coming from a warehouse perspective. So from a warehouse perspective, if you're using something like this, you have to look at how many picks you're doing and all that sort of thing. If you're interested in going through that with us, feel free to contact us or Innovia, and we can work through an ROI calculation. For the shop floor side of things, it's a little bit easier to calculate. Based on the number of production orders you have out in the system, and if you're doing manual time cards and those sorts of things, there is actually an ROI calculator on our website. You can go in and just type in ROI calculator. The website, by the way, is dmsiworks.com. You can go in, or better yet, navshopfloor.com. You can go in and enter your information, and it will spit out a rough ROI calculation for you.
Okay, thank you. And does Shop Floor Insight have built-in quality tracking reports?
Often we'll use Jet reports for that. So we'll go in and design reports specifically for the customer, or they'll define them themselves based on what they need to do. But from within Nav, you can get all the reporting as far as what was done and what passed, what failed, all of those sorts of things from within Nav. Power BI or Jet reports or something like that is typically what's used for higher level dashboards for quality.
All right. Well, thank you for the informative information. Looks like that's all the questions that we have. If anyone has any further questions and would like to get in contact with us or Mark, you can go ahead and do so. That's info@innovia.com. Or Mark, do you happen to have your information?
Best is just going to the website, and there's a contact form there that you can go. So either Nav Mobile WMS or navshopfloor.com will get you to where you need to be.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Excellent.
All right. Again, this has been recorded, so it will be available on our website later this week for you to review again, or if you want to share it with anyone, you're more than welcome. That's innovia.com. And we will actually have one more webinar this week. Our very own Bob Beard is going to be presenting on productivity gains from warehouse automation in Nav, and that's on Thursday, October 11th. So if you're interested in that webinar, go ahead and register for that on our events page. And then next week, we are off to Summit. We have been preparing for this practically all year long, and it is one of our biggest events that we attend, and it will be out in Phoenix, Arizona. So we'll be out there from October 15th through the 18th. We are at booth 529, so stop by and see us. We would love to chat with you. All right. Thank you again, everyone, for attending, and we look forward to seeing you on one of our future webinars. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mark.